understanding ball flight. It's probably one of the easier things to do and yet one of the most complicated things to do. How do I know what I've done in my golf swing to make the golf ball do what the golf ball has done? Well, what I like to do when I'm teaching better players how to understand ball flight is to just do kind of simple little drills to get them to understand. It's not even really a drill. It's just sort of, hey, what's going to happen here? So if I take this ball, which is not round, by the way, this thing is a little bit oblong. If I take this ball and in a down the line view here, Gibbsy, and I drop this thing onto this wood right there, it's going to bounce straight back up to me. Okay, we know that. We would be stunned if when I dropped this, it went flying over there or flying back to the camera. Stunned. So that means that if the ball is moving straight down and it hits an object that is perpendicular to that it will then deflect right back up in the direction that it originally came down to the level object. Okay, so that makes sense. Now, if I take this and I put this like this, and now I change the angle of the floor, and I drop this to this board that's tilted in that direction, the ball will go right in that direction. And so when you start trying to understand this, you would go, it's illogical for this to go that way. It's illogical for it to go straight up into the air. What it's going to do is when I drop this here, it's going to deflect over here. And I like to do everything 3 times. Because if it happens once, that could just be a fluke. If it happens twice, that could be a coincidence. But when it happens 3 times, now it's certain. So that's 1, there's 2, there's 3. So I know it's going to go that way. Now, this is the ball moving to the object, the slanted object. If I take the slanted object and I move it to the ball, in other words, if I could suspend this ball in the air and I could move that board at whatever angle that is at straight up to the ball, it would still go that direction. It would not go straight and then curve over there. And here's how you know this to be that way. You have a lofted club, a pitching wedge. You hit it, so in that direction it goes. It does not travel along the ground until a certain period of time, 10, 15, 40, 80 yards, and then all of a sudden magically go up into the air. That doesn't happen. What happens is that the ball is sitting here, the lofted club, which is this here, hits the ball, and the ball immediately jumps up into the air. Now the curve, left and right, that's a separate issue that we're going to deal with. But the point is that you know that the deflection that happens in the ball because of the face angle is instantaneous. It's right away. And so many of you go, well, the path does this and the face does this. The face is the most important part of all this. And when you're trying to understand ball flight, you have to understand face is the most important thing. Doesn't matter whether it's a driver or a sand wedge, face is the most important thing. And this little example that I have given you here explains why. If I take that and I angle it and I drop this here, it's going to go over here. It does go up. It goes up. But it doesn't go straight up this way and then over there. It angles up and in that direction. So there's still a bounce up, but it goes forward, okay? And that's the first thing that you've got to get into your mind. Now, I'm going to put this down, and then I can start to hit some balls and show you what I'm talking about here, okay? So, when you're understanding ball flight, the first thing that you have to do is you got to understand face is most important. That's what I just explained to you. Now, face is going to be reflected in the shot. And the reflection is going to be, in effect, where did it end up? So if I hit this shot here, slightly open face, that ball is going to go over to the right-hand side or the push side. Okay? Now, come on up to the front here, And let me try to explain to you the ball flight that took place. That ball in the horizontal launch, which means horizontally, which way did it launch? It launched to the push side, or to the right. The side spin was 1362 to the right, which means my club face was to the right. And it was evidenced by it starting to the right, not necessarily the path. We'll see in a second, but it started to the right and then it curved to the right. So all the right means that my club face was to the right. Now, many of you want to talk about, well, open or closed, whatever it may be. I prefer using lefts and rights. Lefts and rights are very simple for all of us to understand whether we're right or left-handed. Lefts and rights. So club face to the right, that means that ball's going to the right. Club face to the left, that means that's going to the left. And so when I hit that golf ball out to the right, now I back away from the ball to, well, what was the position of the club face? And at that point, we know the club face was to the right. Now, let's look at the information that came out of the shot that we just hit. And here's what we got. We got an in to out path of 1.3. So now I know the path was over there to the right as well. But what you'll notice is this is 1.3. What we also know is the horizontal launch, which is right here, is 2.1, which means not only was the path out to the right, but the start line of the golf ball was more to the right than the path. So the path was out 1.3, but the ball started 2.1, which means that I had a right path, but I also had a face that was to the right of a right path, and the ball launched out that way. Okay? Now, let's hit another one here, and this time I'm going to do a little bit of an exaggeration to show you about this ball flight. I'm going to take the club and I'm going to open it up. I'm going to swing over to the left. But because the club face is going to be so open, the ball is not going to start to the left. It will start to the right. So club face is wide open. Now I'm going to aim. So good down the line there, Gibbsy. I'm going to aim over to the left. So the club face is open, and now I'm going to swing over to the left. So here we go. Now that golf ball curved violently to the right. Come on up to the front because there's some other things that happened here. One, with my 6-iron, that ball only went 127 yards. So that's one of the indications that, man, that club face was wide open. It didn't go the distance that I wanted. The other thing is that vertical launch jumped up into the air. Typically what's going to happen when that vertical launch goes way up is I've got the club face in a wide open position. So the horizontal launch is 2.8 to the right. Let's just call it 3 degrees to the right. So the ball launched 3 degrees to the right. It didn't start to the left. It started to the right. The side spin on that was 3,400 RPMs to the right, which is an ungodly amount. And the backspin was up at 7,700. I normally am going to have about 5,400 RPMs of backspin with my 6-iron. Now, let's see what happened with the path of the golf club, because we know right launch, right spin, right face. Right launch, right spin, right face. And that's not correct. That means that it's to the right, okay? Now, let's look at what we got out of this path. And remember what I said to you, I was aiming to the left. That path is 6 degrees to the left. That ball started 3 degrees to the right. That tells you how open that club face is. And so when you start trying to figure out whether you're over the top or whether you're under the top or whatever it is, the first thing you got to do is you got to look at what goes on with the start line of the golf ball and the curve of the golf ball. So, Greg, if you would, let's pull that up full, but keep a trace on that shot. So let's put a trace on that shot, and let's see how much that curved. There you go. So now you can see that started to the right, and then it curved tremendously. That sort of detail of that shot, that's 7,774 RPMs of backspin and 3,423 RPMs of right side spin, which is why that thing curves so violently over to the right-hand side. So when you're trying to understand ball flight, the first place you look is at the face. And when you're trying to solve your problems, the first place that you're going to adjust is adjust the face. So when I'm going to hit a shot now, after hitting that, I think to myself, okay, that club face is way, way, way open. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to square the club face. Now, that's just going to be a simple alteration of a grip. So I'm not gripping the club face open. Now it's square. Now I go ahead and I hit my shot. And now what you can see with that one is this is a much better shot. First of all, let's wait till this stops, and then I want to pull up the shot shape on that one there. So let that just fall blank, and now pull that up, and you can see that ball started more or less to the left, maybe right at the target. Pretty straight. That's in the dead center, actually. So, and then it faded a little bit over to the right-hand side. So now, when we look at what the information tells us, that's 0.1 to the right. That's pretty straight. I mean, 0.0 is dead straight. 0.1, that's dead straight. And then I got 657 RPMs to the right, which is why I curved to the right, but it's not 3,400. And then what we got with the backspin, 5,500 in the backspin instead of 7,700 in the backspin. So what does that all tell you? It tells you this. When you really want to understand what's going on with ball flight, you start with you start with face and end with path. Start with face and end with path. You want to solve your problems. You start with face. Fix the face to understand what's going on with the curve of the golf ball, what's going on with the start line of the golf ball. It's no longer like if you're one of those older people like I am, there was a philosophy that your path sends it and the face bends it. That is not the way it is. The face sends it and the face bends it. And so you pay attention to what's going on with the face. It's what I call the moneymaker. Pay attention to the face. Get control over that face, and you will really understand what's going on with ball flight. To improve all parts of your game, subscribe to my channel.